In environmental geography, we first studied the concept of environment, ecology, and ecosystem. Now, we have to study the concept of ecosystem in detail. As we know that environment is the integration of all the biotic and abiotic components, while ecology is all types of relationship between the abiotic and biotic components. But ecosystem is the scientific study of the process which interlink the biotic and abiotic components. The main processes are energy flow, biogeochemical cycle, and biocycle. So, to define the concept of ecosystem, we have to think over the ecosystem, that it is the scientific study of the processes, all types of processes which interrelate all the abiotic and biotic components of environment. It means environment consists of a number of abiotic, means lithospheric, atmospheric, hydrospheric components, as well as all the biotic, means plants and animals. So the process interlinking these is called ecosystem. In other words, these processes interlink the structure of ecosystem. On the basis of these processes, stage of ecosystem is decided. It means the rate of this process varies from time to time. In different stages, rate varies, on the basis of which the stage of the ecosystem is decided. And thus, the ecosystem is the scientific study or concept of structure, process, and stage. This structure, process, and stage is studied by Davis in the cycle of erosion, which is called Davisian trio, in which we study the rocks, the processes, sculpturing landforms. Processes means fluvial, aeolian, glacial, etc. And the stage means youthful, mature, and old stages of that landform. In the same way, this structure, process, and stage can be applied in urbanology or in the study of cities. All the cities consist of some structure. Structure means the makeup of that city, means the concrete, multi-story buildings, pakka roads, and other urban shapes. While in urban studies, this process is also very important because it is process, means the function of the city may be education, politics, business, or any type of activities that keeps that urban activity in work, and on the basis of these process or activities, that city survives and grows. In the same way, this stage is also a very important part of urban study because city may be in primary stage, means town, then it may develop in class 1 city, metropolis, at last megapolis. And this structure, process, and stage concept may be applied in human life, in our physiology, because our body has some structure, means head, this body, leg, and hands, and these structures are interlinked with process, means different systems like food system, nervous system, etc. And on the basis of that process, we can study the stage of this body, means child, mature, and old stage. In the same way, in ecosystem, this concept of structure, process, and stage can be applied. Here, we have to study structure, then process, and at last stage. In structure, we have to focus two things. Number one, trophic level, and number two, food pyramid. On the base, it is the autotroph, means all types of plants, means grasses, shrubs, scrubs, and large size trees. And these are the base of the ecosystem, and these are called autotroph. These produce food themselves. They don't take food from any source, means these how take the energy from the sun, how these take the nutrients from the soil. This is process that will be studied here. But here we have to study that the base of the ecosystem structure is autotroph, and these are also termed primary producer because these don't take food from any other source. Rather, these plants, these flora, make food from the abiotic sources like insolation, like light, heat, and soil nutrients, which are abiotic. On this flora depend the herbivores. Herbivores means rabbit, goat, deer, cow, horse, and camel. And these herbivores don't produce food, rather they take food from these plants. And plants are autotroph, but these are secondary producer or primary consumer. Why primary consumer? Because cow, horse, these eat grass, tree, plant leaf, and thus they consume the products by the primary producer. Hence, these are called primary consumer, but secondary producer. These are not primary producer, rather primary producer are these plants called autotroph. Then on this herbivore depend these carnivores, means meat eating animals like lion, frog, wolf, and polar bear. And these are called tertiary producer, means these depend on the herbivores, while herbivores depend on these plants. And these tertiary producers are also called secondary consumer. These are the primary consumer and these are the secondary consumer, while these are not consumer like producer. Next comes in this food pyramid, next comes these omnivores. Omnivore means man, dog, and crow, because these can eat both. Both means the herbs as well as the meat. It means these are herbivores and carnivores both, and these are called tertiary consumer. Thus, the food pyramid consists of 1, 2, 3, 4 layers, depending one on the other. And this food pyramid has two main names, two main parts. One is the trophic level. On this side, these are called trophic levels, means these provide food to the dependent. For example, these plants provide food and nutrient to the herbivores depending on these, and herbivores provide food and nutrient to carnivore, carnivore to omnivores. And there is one more segment, diversivore, in which it is man, which is the main. Diversivore means that eats the diverse things. Diverse thing means number one, the plants, and number two, the flesh or animals, and number three, different types of rock like calcium, limestone, that man uses in food. The second part of the ecosystem structure is here food pyramid. In food pyramid, there are 4 levels. One is called primary producer, second, secondary producer, then the tertiary producer, and at last, tertiary consumer. Sometimes there is doubt while studying the decomposing bacteria or the decomposers. After the death of dog, cow, or any animal, some bacteria decompose that rotten body, but those decomposing bacteria are not included in this food pyramid. And thus there are 4 main levels of the structure of ecosystem or food pyramid. Now, after studying the food pyramid in the study of structure, now the second aspect is process in the ecosystem, and the third will be stage. In process, how the abiotic and abiotic realms are interconnected, we have to focus on it. So, there are 2 processes interconnecting the ingredients of ecosystem. Number 1 is energy flow, which is unidirectional, and number 2, it is biogeochemical cycle, and its part is this biochemical cycle. In energy flow, we have to study that from the sun, energy comes on the earth. This living planet means biosphere. In biosphere, the main recipient of the insolational energy are the plants. In insolational energy, it is light and heat that travels through atmosphere, and it is of abiotic nature and abiotic origin, and it is unidirectional energy flow. It means it is not cyclic. As this light and heat comes to the plant through photosynthesis process, and especially by light and dark reaction, the plants absorb this energy, convert it into ATP and ADP, and in night, in presence of carbon dioxide, in dark reaction, it is converted into glucose. When this glucose comes in the plant leaf, then it is being consumed by the herbivores. Then that energy flows in carnivores and then omnivores. Suppose it is lion, it is dog, or any animal. As lion roars, dog barks, that sound energy, although of biotic origin, but its nature is abiotic, and that moves to the atmosphere and space. Thus, this energy is in the beginning in the form of light and heat is in abiotic state, but as it enters the plant, becomes ATP, ADP and glucose, it becomes of biotic nature. Then again in the form of sound, it becomes of abiotic nature. Thus, this is unidirectional flow of energy. It is not cyclic because the light and heat energy from the sun does not return back to the sun. That's why it is not cycle. It means we have seen that all the 4 layers of this food pyramid here are interlinked by this energy. Now the second process is biogeochemical cycle. For example, here is a plant, and this plant through roots takes all the energy, all the nutrients from the soil. For example, calcium, potassium, magnesium and nitrogen from soil. That energy is of abiotic nature in soil, but as it is taken by plant, that calcium becomes of biotic nature, and that moves through this ecosystem food pyramid. Means the herbivores take this calcium, potassium, magnesium from herbivores. It reaches the carnivore, then omnivore, then at last that energy means these nutrients in biotic form are released and it becomes of abiotic nature again. For example, nitrogen released by these plants and animals again reaches the atmosphere, and then that nitrogen comes back to soil, and in soil that nitrogen is being fixed by nitrifying bacteria. Thus, this is in a cyclic form, and this is called biogeochemical cycle because geochemicals move in a cyclic path through abiotic and biotic and then again abiotic components. The second cycle of this biogeochemical is the energy taken by these plants and then reaching in the herbivores, then carnivores, and then omnivores reaches at least at the upper level. After the death of that lion, this energy becomes of abiotic nature and again reaches the soil, means calcium, potassium, magnesium pass through a cyclic way and again reach here. Thus, this is the biogeochemical cycle in which you are seeing that all the four levels of structure as the abiotic energy from the sun is moving through all the four levels of the ecosystem structure are moving in unidirectional path. In the same way, through all the four levels of this food pyramid, the biogeochemicals means this calcium, potassium, etc. is also moving in a cyclic path. It is not unidirectional. Here, in this flow or process, there is one more aspect, that is the biochemical cycle. Biochemical cycle differs from biogeochemical cycle. In geochemical, the chemicals from the rock or soil or earth like calcium, potassium, magnesium are involved. Contrary to in biochemical, only chemicals are included, not the geochemicals. For example, the nitrogen cycle is generally gaseous cycle, which is biochemical because this nitrogen in gaseous state, if present in the soil pores, it is being taken by the plant root and again released by those plants. This reaches in atmosphere, again fixed in the soil by nitrifying bacteria. In the same way, this oxygen cycle also circulates from soil, plant and atmosphere. This carbon cycle also undergoes the same process, and calcium cycle, although it is part of geochemical cycle, but it is also included in biochemicals. Next is water cycle or water circulation. It is also biochemical cycle, not geo. Although plant roots take this water from the soil or soil moisture in the form of film water, and when these plants release it through evaporation, that precipitates and comes back again to the soil. This is in cyclic state. But if that plant leaf is being eaten by the animal, that again comes back ultimately to the earth and soil moisture. Thus, it is in also a cyclic stage. So, this is water cycle or water circulation. It is not hydrological cycle. There is some difference in hydrological cycle and water circulation. Hydrological cycle is a study of water circulation on wide scale. For example, the water evaporated from the vast reservoirs, maybe ocean, sea, river, pond, reaches in the atmosphere, then again precipitates on the land and ultimately reaches to that source, that is called hydrological cycle. But water circulation is related with the plants and animals. Thus, these are the cyclic forms of the structure of ecosystem. Here, one very noteworthy or important thing is that this energy moves from these autotroph or primary producer to herbivore, carnivore, and omnivore, and the amount of energy passing through different steps is only 10%, while 90% of the energy is left back in the previous level. So, this is the process in ecosystem. We have studied the structure of ecosystem, how biotic and abiotic are interrelated. After that, we studied all the processes, means this energy flow connecting all the abiotic and abiotic components of our environment. Then here process we have studied. And the third aspect of the study of concept of ecosystem is stage. Stage is very important, which is being decided by the trophic level and the processes interlinking those. In stage, we can study the status of the biosphere or the biome. Biome means the unified form of plants and animals. If we have a view of biome or the structure of ecosystem on the earth, we can reach a conclusion that the ecosystem in its mature stage may be traced along the equatorial belt, means the equatorial evergreen forest ecosystem is in its mature stage because of the diversity of plants and animals. At the same time, all the processes, means energy flow and biogeochemical cycles are at their fastest rate, means this is extreme position of ecosystem. But if we see other areas where shrubs and scrubs are found, there the stage of ecosystem is second to the climatic climax or the equatorial evergreen rain forest, and where only deserts are found like hot, cold, and temperate. There, this ecosystem is in its primary stage, means in its beginning stage. So, these may be changed due to change in geographical conditions, due to tectonic activities, and sometimes it is human activity, human interference that affects the structure and process of the ecosystem and bringing about change in the stage of ecosystem also. So, if there is question on the concept of ecosystem, first you will define what is ecosystem, then you will focus on the structure, process and stage of the ecosystem, and then the structure of ecosystem, processes in ecosystem, and at last stage of ecosystem. And then you can give examples from different ecosystem from world. And if you want to divide world into ecosystem, then you will have to take the climatic condition, vegetation zone as criteria. For example, equatorial ecosystem savanna ecosystem, hot desert ecosystem, monsoon ecosystem. Likewise, there are a number of ecosystems on the earth, and the number of ecosystem is as much as the climatic and vegetation zone on the earth.